On. There we are. All right. There we see that screen. Get the most out of your EMR. Mike, can you see that there?
I got it.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm Kevin Roush. I've got a great webinar for you this morning. Thanks for joining us. This is Perform Practice Solutions. And we're going to come to you live and direct this morning. It's Tuesday. I'm going to try to bring some energy, some life, and some oomph to your week right here, right now. We're going to talk about getting the most out of your EMR. I've got a great friend and a great partner in the PT industry and PT world here, Mr. Mike Dwyer. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
And he is just the epitome of the expert when it comes to EMR systems. He's actually developed one. So we're going to get kind of a really cool inside look at what great EMR can be and should be for you and your practice. Because let's face it, guys, it's 2020. It's been a hard enough year already. So let's have somebody on our sides that's going to make this a little bit easier for you and your office. It's 9:04. Our policy is we usually get started and start rolling with the material right now. We're seeing a ton of you jump on and join us live this morning. It's been actually a couple months since I've done a live webinar. I guess I needed a break during the Corona shutdown and whatnot, that first one in March. Shoot, I feel like we were doing webinars every week. And man, my voice got tired, and you probably got tired of hearing it. But we've had a ton of requests for the webinar train to kick back on again, and here we are. You ask, you get, and we are happy to provide for you. It's who we are, it's what we do, and we love serving you, the practice owner, the office manager, the PT, the doc, the back-end practice runner, all of you folks. That's who this webinar is absolutely for. So without further ado, we're going to get rolling here, and I'm going to set up my screen again. Let's introduce this title: Getting the Most Out of Your EMR for Your Practice. So here we go. A little bit of an agenda for us here this morning. We're going to do a bit of an introduction for Mr. Mike Dwyer and myself. We're going to talk about some specific front office needs. We're going to go into quickly some documentation requirements, abilities, and kind of some management stuff with specific regard to documentation. And then we'll probably spend the vast majority of our time this morning on office management, using your EMR suite as the catalyst for management inside of your practice. And folks, I'm a multiple practice owner myself. I love it. I live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. And guys, management is where the success happens. I love helping, I love sharing, I love showcasing and stuff. But this is where your office, your practice, your business gets better, is your ability to manage, pivot, change, coach, teach, and make your team get the stuff done that you want them to get done. You're going to see me take a bunch of coffee breaks this morning. We just did a soccer tournament in Phoenix because Lord knows you can't play soccer in California at this point. We got in at midnight a night or two ago. I'm still reeling from the effects of the 6-hour drive home. Luckily, my boys' team, they won the championship. Yay.
There you go.
And all that means is we got to drive home starting at 6 o'clock at night from Phoenix to Southern California. So we got home around midnight. So yay parents. And last, guys, but not least, we are absolutely going to take your questions at the end. There's a little button on the top called Q&A. So please feel free to click on that. We love answering questions. We love participation in these webinars, and there's nothing that's really off the table for Mike and I this morning. So please. I just noticed my picture there. My son and I were actually at a golf course called Pebble Beach, and I'm actually wearing the same shirt today as I am in that picture. That's funny. What a subliminal thing must have gone on in my mind when I was getting dressed this morning. But here we go, guys. Let me introduce you, Mike Dwyer. He's a finance guy, self-proclaimed. I think that means he's a money guy. He's great at getting hurt, which that was your introduction to PT, I assume, right?
Every single month, something pops up. I'm the best PT patient in the world, great out of network benefits, and awfully consistent.
So you like what we do, and you are a frequent connoisseur, if I take it.
Without you guys, I would be probably in a wheelchair by now.
And you're the co-founder and sales guy for Prompt. Can you give us the quick 30-second version of how you went from a finance hurt guy into who you are and what you do now?
Yeah, so I've multiple injuries, primarily slap tear and external compartment syndrome. I spent roughly 3 years in college in PT, and just talking to PTs, every single one I spoke to hated documenting, banning their existence, least favorite part of their job. And then from there, I was kind of tipped off that there was an opportunity. I began researching every single practice setting, every single system, and came to find that a lot of the issues boiled down to technology, mainly because everything's fragmented and built in the early 2000s. So I thought if we came out with something built in 2020 with cutting edge technology, boiling everything down to one platform, that we'd win. And we currently are.
That's so fun to hear. I've been in the game for a really long time, Mike, and I've seen uh, the transition from paper documentation and paper bill tickets to very rudimentary and crude scheduling and documentation technology. And then I've seen some progress in the middle to like 2010 to 2012, but it seems like you and your team have taken it to probably the next level. Is that right?
Yeah, it's mainly just being able to update frequently is what it boils down to. And given our code base, the structure of how we built it, we're able to take feedback and implement it very quickly. If you notice, I'm a finance guy. I'm not a PT. I'm not an owner. I'm not an admin member. So we take feedback, take it seriously, run it through our clinics, and implement it faster than anyone. And I think that's been the real edge in the space, is just being able to adapt to how things change.
Well, it sounds pretty cool from a practice owner to you. And I'm looking forward to essentially you showcasing some of that this morning. How this is going to go is I'm going to talk about some big needs for PT offices and PT practice management. And then I'm going to kick it to you a couple times and let you kind of show us what the difference is with your solution. Is that okay?
I'd love to.
Super cool. Again, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy, and it means the world to us and the PT group as a whole that somebody like you would spend some time and help us get better from a practice management and a business opportunity too.
No, I love the opportunity. And I think it's cool since you met us really when we started to now. I think it's cool to see the before and after, so you say, too.
Yeah, and realistically, that wasn't that long ago that I was first introduced to you. A year, maybe tops.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Fair enough. So I'm excited to have you on here finally. And again, thanks for joining us. So that's a little bit about us. If you don't know me already, I'm Kevin Roush. I am a practice owner. I'm a father of two. I love to play golf. I love to fish. And if I'm not in an office, I'm probably on a golf course or on a boat. So if you call my phone and I don't answer, chances are I'm about 100 miles offshore, hopefully trying to catch one of these marlins or something like that. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. Most of my stuff is kind of in the PT space. We've got 4 practices and growing every year, and that's kind of the practice stuff. And then what you're watching right now is called Perform Practice Solutions, and that's our service business that comes alongside and helps to support PT practices, medical offices, speech language pathology, and some occupational therapy practices as well. Perform does everything from digital marketing to billing to coaching to verification of benefits and so many other things. We just like supporting you and your business, and it's our job to help you win and get better at it. So that's a little bit about us. And yeah, let's jump in here. So, in the big scheme of things, there's really 3 big areas that your your EMR system should tackle. And we're going to leave kind of the billing out of this one. We'll talk about billing like we have in the past at another date. But there's three big areas. There's the front, there's the documentation side of it for your providers, and then there's the management side of it for you practice owners and you office managers, right? But the front, I think the front is probably one of the most under reviewed and underestimated portion of an EMR system. Because let's face it, guys, your front desk team is everything to your practice. They're the front of house. They're the first people that answer your phone. When your new patients call in, they're the first people that they talk to. They need a system that is not just usable, but intuitive, I would actually say. And guys, let's face it, some of our offices cycle through front desk team members pretty regularly. I know we hire about one new front desk team member almost every month between our four offices. So the ability for a new person to, from day one, jump on and be able to figure out and understand this scheduling and patient management system is vital to your success on so many levels. Because let's face it, up front, not only does it have to be a good customer service aspect, but they have to get all the information right coming in, because those same numbers that they're data entering into the patient account is the same numbers that your billing team is going to be using to bill. And if they're wrong up front, it means you don't get paid in the end. And I'm a practice owner. That's a big deal. I want to get paid for every single visit that walks in the door. And what we see from a billing management cycle side of things is the vast amount of people who are having denied claims and aren't getting paid. It's stemming from a data entry issue problem with your front desk team. So your front of house system, your scheduling system, your new client engagement system, it needs to be on point. It needs to be something that is 2020, capable from a customer service side of things. And guys, I'm going to argue with you that if you're looking at EMR systems and you're grading them right, left, and different pros and cons, I think this is where you put the most amount of eggs in that basket, the front basket, I mean, because it's the thing that's going to make or break your patient experience here in the office. Mike, what do you think? Do you agree?
My motto is keep it simple, stupid for pretty much everything. The simpler you can make it, the easier for a transition from actually being in the schedule through billing and making sure there's no bottlenecks there is key. And it's also a lag time issue too, because if it takes you 2 months to get a front office person involved in the system and understanding it, that's an issue generally with the software, not with the person. So for us, we just try to keep it very simple, automate as many of the things they don't want to be doing, and just get right into it, which I'm happy to show you right now if you want.
Yeah, let's roll through this next slide, and then I'm going to kick it to you, and we'll go through some prompt specific items that you can help us solve, because there's a couple big needs. Sorry, I'm pointing left. This is my presentation screen here on the left. There's a couple big needs that your front almost requires, right? An intuitive system, an ability to capture patient info without your front desk team trying to type while they're on the phone with a new patient and trying to get all that information in. We want your front desk team should look like they're pros at doing this, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I would say probably last, but definitely not least, in 2020, if I'm a patient, I need to be reminded that I'm coming in to see you, right?
The appointment reminder aspect is important because most patients are just, they're just going through the motions. They're on Percocet maybe, and it's just all jumbled. The key is to keep them in the schedule, because great. If you have 97% of your schedule full, but you have 20% cancel no show, there's an issue somewhere. And we try to mitigate that with appointment
Yeah,
reminders for the patient.
absolutely. And I would argue that we don't just need appointment reminders for the client that's supposed to come in that day, but we actually need reminders for our front desk team to realize that, oh, I don't have you on the schedule for the next 2 weeks and I need to book you, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's also feeding in with the therapy plan. Like if the therapist wants you coming in 3 times a week, if you're not in that calendar 3 times a week, number one, your outcomes are worse. But number two, you're leaving a lot of money on the table for that patient. And as you know, owning practices, it's hard to get a new patient. So you really need to maximize every single patient coming through your practice.
It sounds like you're leading into one of my other talks. Let me kick it to you and your screen, Mike. Will you show us what that means and how your system kind of works from that point of view?
Yeah, I just want to show getting a new patient in. So add a new patient, should be able to do it from the schedule. If not, it's just wasting screen time and clicks across the platform. So I'm just going to add someone here. Date of birth. I'm going to make my mom a little bit younger.
She appreciates that.
At least one contact point, and that's vital, and I'll show you why in a second. And then from here, I'm just going to do my injury. You ever treat a slap tear?
Yeah, just a few of them in my 20 years.
Not fun. That was 9 months for me.
Really?
Yeah, partially because of my own doing. Never did my home exercise program, and then another component to this, which we'll get to. But from here, like one thing we notice is when someone's just on the phone with someone plugging in data points, you're not on the offensive. You're not trying to get that patient in, like sell them. Because from our view, the front desk should be heavily just on that patient saying Roush PT is the best fit for XYZ, not what's your insurance, what's this, what's that. The intake component, you can write on that call after you add that patient, directly send them all their information. And once they fill it out, it automatically goes into the case. And the therapists love that because every single piece of the note on the subjective area is ironed out before the patient even comes into your office. So once you add a patient, you'll then request their form. It will ask you for an outcome measure. And all of this you can change. So if a patient comes in and you're like, okay, this patient's obviously not medically necessary to be here based on their response, and it's different when they get in, you can always adjust that. And then once they get the intake and it gets filled out, it will then come into the system, tell you it's been filled out, and then you can pop in without having to plug every single data point.
So it sounds like your system has the ability to let the patients actually do a lot of their own data entry.
It's a huge bottleneck in every practice, that first step. And the idea is to give them as much of the burden ahead of time so they don't need to come to the office beforehand, spend 15, 20 minutes filling it out. They just iron it out ahead of time. And people have been appreciating that, especially with COVID, because you don't want to be handed a packet of paper right now. It just makes things a lot more easy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up. I don't know about you guys, but California is now back in the purple tier, and we're kind of taking a couple steps back when it comes to the progression of our reopening and whatnot. So yeah, I think you're right from a timing aspect. The minimizing the amount of paper and handoffs and that kind of thing back and forth is probably not just for the better health wise, but it actually makes people more confident in you and your systems when they're coming into your office, I would assume, right?
Yeah, the idea is just come back and see Kevin versus having these 15 steps in between, which confuses the patient, makes it more difficult on the front desk, and just doesn't make it seamless, which we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, the front desk team, they're my favorite part of any single office. So whatever the system can do to help alleviate the data entry points and the bottlenecking as you described it from all the work that the front desk normally has to do just to build a patient case, it allows them to answer more phone calls. It allows them to schedule more people in and out of the office. And it allows them to provide probably the sales and customer service experiences that, everybody wants. But if you want it as one thing, but if your team is unable to provide it because of the system, I mean, you can want it all day, but if you can't do it, you can't do it, right?
Correct. Yeah, and another thing that's been helpful with COVID, one of our partners, Better PT, if a patient wants to book a visit online, they can go through your site and have it directly populated to the EMR. And you still control it because most owners want a first touch point via call with the patient, but
Yeah.
at least gives you a lead to manage from the system. So if a patient books online, it will say visit needs approval. There we go. And then from here, you're still able to control the schedule because you may have a patient that you know is going to take longer, but at least you have that person in there, you have their contact information, and you can get them in.
Yeah, that's some really cool functionality. I like that from a intake perspective. And, like we were saying, like the system needs to be intuitive and it needs to be easy and it needs to be quick. And, I didn't time you directly when you were building that patient case when you first started there, but, roughly 15 seconds. If you
15,
would-
20 seconds. I've done a bunch of demos, but if you can spend a few weeks in there playing with it, you can get it pretty quick.
Yeah, that's cool. Will you kick the control back to me so I can share my screen?
Yeah, no problem.
Great. There we are. Sorry for the back and forth, guys. That's what you get when you got two amazing presenters. You see my screen again there?
I got it.
Wonderful. So that's the front. Let's move forward. I call this middle section the dock. It was a little bit of a play on words because I think it could be titled the documentation side, but it could also be titled, the doc, the provider side, the doctor of PT. So that's my attempt at using the English language. But like I said, I'm a PT, so you shouldn't trust anything. From the doc standpoint, right? There's a couple keys that we all are looking for. And again, I'm a PT. I was a provider. Now I'm a practice owner and a business operator. But I used to treat for about 16 years or so. And from a PT standpoint, a lot of us are looking for timing and easeability and usability. And you PTs out there and you practice owners out there, the metric that we use here internally at our group of offices is pretty simple. You as a therapist, as a provider, you should be able to completely document, open and close a note if it's a follow-up visit within 30 seconds. If it's a new case and it's a brand new patient, it should take you no more than 5 minutes to do that documentation, unless there's some crazy extraneous circumstances. Now, granted, there is some training involved in your ability and some learning involved in your ability to document this quickly. But guys, let's face it, there's no insurance company on the planet that pays you to write notes. And if that's the case, you should spend as little amount of time possible actually documenting these visits and these notes. Don't get me wrong, I understand that you have to. I know it's a thing. I know we were all told in PT school that documentation was the most important part of what you were going to do as a therapist. I completely disagree with that. But I was in PT school too. And I remember her name was Dr. Stern, and she was on us like white on rice about writing our notes and being complete and these long, giant page long notes for a daily follow-up visit. And it's fine. You know you needed to learn how to do it. But guys, let's face it, if you got to see 15, 20 patients a day to be able to maintain your salary that you enjoy or to be able to maintain and grow your business, there's no way you can spend 10, 15, or 20 minutes on 15 notes every single day. Not only is it silly, it's a giant time suck. And I don't know about you guys, but I like having a life outside of rubbing thighs and fixing shoulders. So guys, timing is vital to how quickly you can get back to treating patients, and you can get back to FaceTime and one-on-one time with your patient load, because they're not in your office for you to write a story about. They're in your office for you to fix them, right? Like that's literally why they're there, is for your ability to fix them, not for your ability to write a story about, why Mike had a slap tear and couldn't figure out how to do his home exercise program was on his own. He's there because he wants to get fixed. The system itself, it should have the built-in features and guidelines to ensure that your documentation is on par, to ensure that you are, within the guidelines of appropriateness and following all of our, 1,000 Medicare things that need to be hit. Let's leave that to the system. Let's not put that on us. But when I talk to PTs, and Mike, maybe you can chime in on this. It seems like the PT group and the physician group themselves, if they're considering a new EMR, the first thing they talk about is, well, show me the documentation.
Every single time.
Every time,
And
really? That's the thing?
It really is. And I agree with your stance. I really don't think it is the most important. I think that making sure that the time is not going to be a time suck where you're there for an extra 2 hours a day is critical. But outside of that, yeah, it's 100% of my meetings start there.
Really?
Yeah.
And guys, folks out there in PT land, practice owners, you wonderful PTs, I would actually challenge your thinking and your thought process here. I would challenge you to not ask Mike or any of the other wonderful EMR providers that are out there. Don't start with documentation. It's not better for your business. In fact, it's probably worse, because we know that, you PT group, you're smart. You're able to be documenting on any platform, whether it's paper, whether it's the old school, therapy source, I'll call out a name there, or whether it's something brand new. That isn't the thing that's going to make your business better. The things that'll make your business better are the front end experience and your management tools that we'll see next. So guys, I'm going to challenge you. Don't focus on documentation as the primary thing when you're grading and when you're looking at new EMR solutions. It's not all about documentation and can I click a button and can I build a custom eval? Yes, of course you can. But that shouldn't be where you spend the majority of your review. These other aspects that we start and we finish with today, in my opinion, that should be where you spend the majority of your review time. Mike,
You hit the nail on the head. You don't get paid to document. You get paid by seeing patients, billing appropriately, managing your staff appropriately. And if the reporting billing is not on par, you shouldn't even look at the documentation.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know if we need to belabor the point any further. But I just have a couple quick points here. Again, the system should be intuitive for a new therapist that's coming on board and learning how to do it, right? It shouldn't be hard, right? It should be quick, and I mean super quick. Like we said, 30 seconds, 5 minutes tops. That's the gold standard at all my offices, all my practices. That's how we grade you. And the system should be able to connect the dots. So if I'm a PT and I know there's an authorization issue, or I know the patient needs, extra visits, the system itself should alert us, and it shouldn't be up to me, the therapist, to go in and find this information. But the system itself should be something that tells us that there's a problem or a need, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you don't want to worry about. You're not a billing compliance expert. You're a business owner who's treating patients, and your focus should not be on that. That's my job.
Yeah, and that's what we want to count on, guys and companies and programs like you for, Mike, is we're going to invest, some good hard-earned dollars in your program and in your system, and we want to know that like you've got us covered, right?
It's my job. We have 3 people. That's all they do.
That's a team that I don't want to be on.
Me neither.
Hey, let's move forward here because this is probably my favorite topic that we ever get to cover here in any of our webinars for Perform Practice Solutions, and it's management. And guys, let's face it, I'm, like I said in the beginning, I'm just a PT, so I immediately struggle with management as well, because that's not what our PT brains were built. It's not what we were taught to do, and it's not something we even probably realized in the beginning of our practices or our offices that we were going to even need to do. So we need help. We need tools. We need abilities. We need reports and measures. We need to know what the metrics are. Like, how do we grade? And we need to know that if we do the right stuff, good things are going to happen. I put this funny picture on here. You know, the crystal ball, the old school kind of thing, on there, because so many PT practices are, they're managed by feel, or they're managed by I think you're doing it this way. Mike, I think you had a good line for that. What was your line?
Management without data is just opinion. And the key is getting that opinion quickly, which we do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really relevant because late last night we had to pull in one of our therapists here in my group that was, frankly underperforming. And myself, the office manager, and the director of rehab had to go meet with this person and say, look, the stats show that you're really good in one area, but you really are struggling here in this area. And in her case, it was the ability to connect patients to wellness and to refer. Um, but we couldn't have been able to have that accurate conversation, or that management type crucial conversation with her, if we couldn't accurately show her where she was lacking at, or how low her numbers were in comparison to the goal, or even how low her numbers were in comparison to her cohorts. Um, and I like your line, because without the data, it's just like you said, opinion, or it's feel, or we think you're not getting it right. But when you can showcase to someone, look, here's you, and here's where we need you to be,
Mhm.
it actually helps those of us that struggle with employee management or provider management. It helps kind of take that feeling part out of it, and it's just the numbers, right?
It's
Um,
it's it's objectified. It's black and white, and it's something I use in my business. Everything we do is tracked, and if you're not tracking it, it can't be measured.
right. It's funny. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a golfer, and the way you track your success on the golf course is with a scorecard, right? And on that scorecard, there's one little box per hole, uh, and there's one little box for a reason. All you have to do is write a number in it. You don't get to draw what you did on the hole. You don't get to go shot by shot. You don't get to tell the story of how many times you hit it in the lake, like Tiger Woods did in the Masters on Sunday. All you get to do is write your number down, and that's your score, and that's all we really care about. And let's face it, from a PT side of things, that doesn't always feel good in our brains. We want to know that we're loved and appreciated, and that our patients love and enjoy working with us. But like you said in the beginning, Mike, insurance companies don't care about feel, and they don't care about opinion. All they care about is the bill that gets sent to them, and the payment that they have to turn around. So it's kind of up to us to make sure that our teams are able to score high, and to be able to do the things that we need them to do from a practice owner and business viewpoint. And we need a system to back us up, with what that looks like. I moved on to this next slide, and it's one of my favorites. Funny, the picture didn't come out super clear, but the guy in the right with the backwards baseball hat on, that's Captain Rich. And he is driving the big boat. It's called the Papa Duck. It's a 65-foot Hatteras, and it's what my children's charity is run on. If you don't know, we take underprivileged kids fishing and whale watching for free, based here out of Newport Beach, California. It's a pretty cool thing. It's called Waypoint Children's Foundation. But I use this picture, and you can kind of just see to the left there. The kid who's driving right now, by the way, it's a funny story. He's blind, and Rich is letting him drive the boat. And this kid had the coolest time in the world driving this big giant yacht, and everybody else on the boat was like, "You can't let Brian drive. He's blind." And Rich was like, "No, I got it. He's driving this boat. He's going to drive us all day." So it was a cool story. But sorry for belaboring that point there. But you can see on the bottom left, there's a bunch of dials. There's a bunch of switches. There's a bunch of gauges, actually, right? And each one of those gauges tells us a different piece about how the boat is running. It lets us know if things are in the green zone and we're doing good. And it lets us know if things are in the red zone. And when we get to the red zone, the alarm goes off. Little red light pops on, their little alarm comes on that's audible in the wheelhouse there. It's akin to like your check engine light on your car. Those gauges, like I said, they let us know how the boat is operating. And if you turn that into a PT practice, your PT practice or your boat, it needs to have gauges that we know it's operating well by. And it's up to us, the owner and the manager, to kind of watch those gauges and to see them, be in the good zone. And if they're low, they need attention. If they're too high, they need attention, and an alarm comes on, right? But it's up to us to be able to kind of manage that and to look at that stuff. So I put together a couple of my favorite gauges here on the screen for each kind of department. And Mike, maybe we can kick to you after the screen, and maybe you can show us one or two of these data points on how your system actually does this. But from my management perspective, when I look at my front desk teams, I want to know a couple things. Did we collect all the money? Are we future booking our patients? Are we doing a good job of tracking our authorizations and our deductibles? And how much of our total capacity did we book and did we see this week? So 4 real big keys, and that's how I manage, and that's how I look at my front desk team. Mike, let me stop.
I really like how you have 4. Kind of going back to your golf point, like with golf, you track that one scorecard, right? And what I find is clinics don't track at all, or they track too much. And I call it paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And the key is having, less than 10 points to track every department, but also making it so you don't have to manually pull all these reports. It leads to error, and it leads to just inaccurate data. And I'll just show you. Be a little bit easier that way. So the capacity report, you have my screen, right?
Yep, gotcha.
This is something we just came out with past few weeks. Many practices have to do this manually. What this shows you is the average capacity per provider, how they were scheduled against that capacity, and then most importantly, the arrival rate. And this matters for a few reasons. It matters for, is your front desk accomplishing their task, which is to book patients, get the schedule optimized, but also, do I need to hire? And one thing I find is, even with myself, you hire because you're reacting to an issue brewing. And this helps you get proactive. So by looking at this data, if you see 8% scheduled, this is not an environment where you need to hire someone. If you were at 95 to 100, you would need to start looking. Helps you visualize that. And then a big thing to us is booking each provider appropriately. So for this provider, for example, they're going to need a new patient soon. They had 3 new cases, 2 discharges within this time frame, and their average duration of stay is 1 visit. They're going to need a new patient. They're also going to need to have that patient come in more often. If you're at 1 patient a case, you're in trouble as a business owner. And then a big thing to us too was understanding, why are people being discharged? This past year, I went through a few of our accounts prior to this update, and I went through all the discharges, and there was no reasons entered. Unless the patients are meeting their goal, they're moved to wellness, to fitness component of your business, they should never be discharged. And it's something I see in every practice. And then in the operations tab, the key is flexibility. You can filter by location, provider, patient, any date range you want to see. It will show your arrival, no-show cancel rate, where the bottlenecks are forming in the practice, and also how things are trending. So if things are going the wrong way, you're going to want to dial in on that department. In the operational side, a big thing was quantifying just performance of how billing is operating. I find that most owners don't really have a tap on that unless they see money coming in their account. And for us, we wanted to show days to submission. I'm happy to say that every single one of our practices is getting claims out same day. And then a big thing too is also understanding, are they billing to what they're doing? And for whatever reason, every single clinic we go into, providers under bill, and it's something management is always like, you can bill more, it's okay, but they're adverse to it. So this helps spot that. So like, for example, your conversation with your PT, if you see this consistently at 2, you can get ahead of it and act upon it versus having, a conversation down the line where at the end of the year, they're grossly below the team. And then I forgot your 4 points. I'm kind of just going in the direction of the flow here. But
I think we're doing good.
One thing that I noticed was people were going after the wrong referral sources. When I was talking to owners in just my time researching, they were spending inordinate amount of time with people they're just not making money on. And a lot of systems, they give you the patients, the visit count given by a referral source. But what they don't do is show you the revenue per referral source. So for example, here, this provider is someone you're not going to want to keep going after. If you're making $20 a visit.
Kick your screen share back on so we can see that.
It's on.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I'm seeing it. Maybe it's just a me thing. Oh, yep, it's on. Hey, my computer went to a different screen. You were right.
All good. So going off that point, you're not going to want to go after the $20 visit. You're going to want to focus on the $106, $120 referral source. And then another big thing, similar to my business, PTs and myself, I don't spend a lot of money on marketing. A lot of it is someone had Kevin you for a slap tear. They had a great experience with you. They tell their friends, whatever. You can track that to the patient level and see what that means to the business very quickly in our system. And then the last point I want to make, well, really 2 things. Authorizations are really tough to manage in this space. And it's something that affects downline. You find out they weren't actually authorized. There's 3 visits out the door. Yep. One thing that we've done is we base it on visits booked in the future, not actual notes or visits completed. And that's an important distinction, because if a provider is behind or something happened, that authorization is not going to be correct. So this gets you ahead of it. And then lastly, plan of care compliance for me is the name of the game. I find that every single owner, they come to me and they're like, I need new patients now. And I look at their books, and if you're at 1 visit per patient a week, you really don't need new patients. You just need to book your existing patients more often. And what this shows you is at this location, this provider, they have 53 patients not complying with their plan of care. That's something I have my owners run every single week, because they really don't need new patients. They just need to book their existing ones properly.
Yeah, I think that speaks really well to future booking, is what we call it here in our group. And I've actually, it's funny you bring that up. I've actually run into that a lot with some of my coaching clients. And I don't know if you know, but I take on probably 10 or 15 coaching clients a month, and essentially help them do better business in the PT world. And I've heard almost every excuse as to why we don't want people to future book. I've heard everything from, well, I want to make sure I can squeeze patients in, to I want to make sure everybody can get in. I want to be flexible and adaptable. I want to take the day off next week, but I don't know which day I want to take off. And and I snicker every time I hear it, because you're perfectly correct, Mike, when you say most offices actually don't need more new patients. They need to do a couple key things with their existing patient load. And one of them is future booking. So we know how busy we're going to be in week 2, week 3, week 4, and week 5. Because if we don't know how busy we're going to be, how do we staff our front desk appropriately? How do we staff our aides or our techs appropriately? How do we know when we need to hire a new PT? And how can we forecast how much revenue flow we're going to be getting for the month if we don't actually have patients on the schedule? So I would say you hit on a really good point there, and the ability of an office to future book and fill the schedule ahead of time is a humongous key for so many reasons in the cycle of practice success.
Predictable. It's something that every clinic should do. And if things change, fine, you book a cancel or what have you. But if you don't do that, it's a gross mistake. And this also helps you see in the future too. So it's not just retroactive. You can come in here and pull future dates of service. If you see 2 visits scheduled for the rest of November into December, that's a problem.
Yeah. In my brain, if it's that low, we're done. We're out. But my offices do a couple hundred visits a week, so it might be different for other folks out there. But let me kick it back, because I want to progress onto some of the metrics that we look at from a more specific manager point of view. Let me share this screen here. We'll get back to this presentation. And from the manager, these are some of the provider metrics that we want to kind of grade our actual therapists or our providers on. And you already alluded to a lot of these. How many visits per eval are they doing? Our average and our expectation is 14. So if we don't see a therapist doing 14-ish visits per eval, then we know that we have a problem. If they do too many visits per eval, we know that they're seeing their patients too often. In fact, and if they do too little, we know that those patients aren't sticking with that plan of care, and there's probably a communication issue for us, the management team, to work on, coach up, and address with that therapist. And I've actually done this one more often than not, where the new therapist comes in and they're super proud that they get all their patients in and out of the office in 6 visits, and their schedule is totally empty. So when we look at this and we run this report and we see that they have only 6 visits per eval, this is an area and an opportunity for us to coach these therapists on, to get their patients to stick with the compliance of their therapy case and their scenario. And it's an easy opportunity for us to fix. You actually made a great point earlier when you were talking about PT billing and frequently underbilling. I think you're perfectly correct in that when we as a billing company come in and start looking at your average bills per patient per visit, and the vast majority of the time, I tell you, it's like 90% or higher of all the new clients that we onboard every month, we see that most therapists underbill for each visit. And it comes from the goodness of your heart that you're underbilling your patients, except for your patients never know that you're underbilling them, and the only person who knows is your owner, and they only know because they want to know. So yeah, underbilling is a big deal in in therapy land. And we as therapists do it because we're trying to serve the patient, but at the same time you're hurting the practice, you're hurting the business, and realistically you're also hurting your own chance for a raise or for a Christmas bonus or for anything like that. And it's because you underbill. So yeah, that's stuff that we want to manage and we want to be able to address. And it's stuff that we need to be able to find and see quickly, because you said it very well earlier when you were on the point that if you only look at it once per year, you can't change the behavior fast enough. You need to be able to change that behavior within the month, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's something that I have people pull up weekly and just keep a tap on. You don't need to be in it every single day, but seeing the trends are important.
Yeah, the trends, right? And I always kick this cockpit view here in to kind of back up the point of what management looks like. And we need dials. We need radar. We need GPS. We need to know trends. We need to know if we're going higher, we're going lower. And that's what a great EMR suite should be able to provide us, owners or managers, at a glance. And that is something quick to be able to realize. I'm seeing some questions pop up. Mike and I are actually about ready to wrap up, so now's a great time to enter your questions so that we can get to them for you. And I'll read them aloud, and Mike and I will do our best to answer them for you. So thank you so much for those questions that I just saw come through. But yeah, it's important, and maybe we can kind of wrap up on this is, from a management and from a practice owner point of view, we need the tools to showcase to us the important things that are going on in our office. Because, Mike, if you run your office, you can't be there every day and every situation and every phone call and every experience and every treatment, and the list goes on and on and on. So you can't be there. You shouldn't be there. You shouldn't even want to be there. Um, but you need to rely on something to accurately paint the picture or provide the data points on how really your office is doing when you're not there. Because that's the most important point, right? Is we want to know how the office does when we're not around. And that's what we should look to from a scorekeeping methodology, and that's what we should look to from an EMR system that helps us keep score. You want to chime
Something
in
we're
on that?
working on too is in the next few months, like if a certain benchmark does not get hit, so say if you set a visit per week threshold, you want 100 in the schedule week, and say if it's at 98, like flagging you ahead of time too is something that's crucial as well, because you're not always going to be able to pull up your stats, but the key is, like you said, to be ahead of it, see the trends.
Yeah, and we want to use those trends, and we want to use those alarm bells, good, bad, or indifferent, to actually help us manage better, and to help us progress, or walk down the dock of what our office is able to do. And tracking it as step one, and then being able to coach it and manage it and help it grow is where the real power of being a good and active owner or manager in a practice really comes into play. You need the data to back you up, but then you also have to have the management capabilities to step in and have those crucial conversations and those coaching conversations to help your team get better, because you can't track it and then not talk about it, right?
It's
You
half the
need to,
battle,
yeah, you need to
or
track
half
it
supplying
first.
it.
Yeah, you need to track it first and then be able to communicate about it and reward it when it's doing great, and probably coach it when it's struggling. And when you're coaching somebody, the ability to see the score is fantastic, and it's what you need. So, Mike, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Your system seems great. I actually don't use your system, but it's wonderful, and I'm excited to see some growth in the space of PT, and I'm excited for what prompt EMR is going to help to bring to practices like mine and practices like all of ours that are listening as well. And I think you're on the right track for giving us practice owners the ability and the tools to be able to run our businesses better and to make it easier on us. So on behalf of PTs, thank you.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. And it's for us, it's just a matter of getting better every day and adapting to the needs of the people that use us. And we're definitely equipped to do so.
I've got a couple quick questions here. And thank you so much for asking these. The question is, it's also important to educate PTs about what CPT codes are reimbursed more and how to justify each CPT code for the visit. And I couldn't agree with you more. The difficulty is in trying to help coach and teach PTs which CPT codes to use in the scenario, is that each insurance payer pays differently on those CPT codes. So I agree with you. This question asker here, I agree with you on one point, but I actually I think it's very difficult to be able to teach your PT team how to perfectly bill, because if you did, you'd actually have to teach them how to perfectly bill for each individual insurer. And that could be like, 10 or 15 different payers that your PT team would have to know how to individually bill for those cases. So it is possible, and I'm not going to tell you it's a bad idea, but it's difficult. I would encourage you that if you're looking at how to manage your individual PT's billing opportunities, is to effectively bill for everything that they do. Don't overbill, and definitely don't underbill. But if your therapist spend an hour and 15 minutes with a patient in the office, and there's a hands-on manual therapy time, and there's a TheraX time, and there's some modality time inside of there, that visit should be at minimum 5 codes, maybe 6 if there's a couple modalities like laser and stim inside of there. But what we see from a billing management component, remember we do practice billing as well, so we see this every day. What we see is that hour and 15-minute visit is actually only billed at 2 or maybe 3 codes. So you're really underbilling by 40% or maybe 50% for that visit. So yes, the CPT codes individually, I'm not going to negate the point, they are important. But what's probably more important is that we're billing for all of the codes that we should be billing for based upon the amount of time that the patient is actually in the office and the therapist is spending with them. So they're both important, but I think that one is probably a bit more important, that we bill for all that stuff. Next question here, Mike. This one's an easy one for you. How do we as PT practice owners get in touch with Prompt PT and Mike Dwyer?
So feel free to email me, mike@promptemr.com. And then my personal cell is 201-926-4278. I just asked not to be called at 3 a.m. Other than that, all good.
I was gonna say, you're a pretty brave soul to actually give your personal cell phone out here live on.
It's actually, I think, one of the biggest differentiators is if you ever need something or support, you need a question, we're always there to answer it, including myself. It's key to everything.
Yeah. Next question, and that was good. Next question. How do your PTs respond to being tracked and managed, like you just showcased? I'll take a little bit of this one. Some PTs don't respond well, in fact. Not every person wants to be tracked, and not every person wants to be managed. And I would argue that that's actually a hiring issue, is that if you're hiring new PTs, you want PTs that want to win, and you want PTs that want to play the game. And if you experience a therapist that doesn't respond well to being managed or doesn't respond well to being score kept, just hire another one.
Well, it's impossible to set goals. Like, even I'm dealing with hiring now. Like, my goal is to set expectations and benchmarks for someone to hit so they can excel at what they do. And if I know we've talked about this a lot, but if you're not tracking and not keeping score, like if you don't keep scoring your golf match, how are you going to benchmark yourself in 2 weeks? You're not. So I echo that. It's really a hiring thing, the hiring process where you weed that out.
Yeah, I agree. Therapists are, we're precarious creatures. We're very much touchy feely, both literally and figuratively. And I think it's up to the office and the practice owner to really set those standards that you just talked about and you identified there. And there can be a host and a large different variety of those standards. But if there aren't standards, then you can't score keep. And if you don't score keep, you can't manage, right?
It's
And we want to win, and we want people on our team that want to win as well. It's 10:05. Normally we wrap up right about now. And Mike, I want to thank you for your time, your expertise. We wish you all the best. Why don't you give your contact email again, just to close us out?
Yep, Mike at promptemr.com. Love to talk to anyone in this audience.
Thanks again, Mike. Mike from promptemr.com. Again, I've been your host. It's Kevin Roush with Perform Practice Solutions. We love you. We want to be here for you. We love answering questions, and we are available to help, and we are available to be your resource. And to see you grow and get better and do better PT business. We'll have a webinar next month as well. It's probably going to be about practice sales again, because that was such a hot topic a couple months ago. And we look forward to coming to you live and direct in the month of December. Join us on our Facebook page for live updates and our YouTube channel as well, where you can see any of our past webinars that we've done. It's Perform Practice Solutions on YouTube. So again, Mike, thanks so much. Everybody in PT land, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day, and all the best to you in your practices. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks everyone for listening. See ya.